Join the students, welcome back. Today we are going to study the third part of this chapter, the rat trap. So let me share the story with you first on your screen. Wait for a minute, please. Now see that from here we have to start today, and let us remind a little bit that where we left in our previous class. The stranger must have seemed incredulous. Means stranger means the peddler, rat trap seller, uh, seemed unbelievable, and for the old man got up, and that's why the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out three wrinkled 10 kroner bills. When Crofter told him that last month uh, as a last month payment he got 30 kroner, that it seemed that stranger means the rat trap seller means peddler did not believe. So in order to make him believe, Crofter got up, and he had since he had put that 30 kroner in a pouch, so he took out those 30 kroner from the pouch before his eyes. It was three wrinkled 10 kroner bills. Remember, students, three wrinkled 10 kroner bills, and it was three 10 kroner banknotes he showed him, and this he held up before the eyes of his guest, and all these things he did in front of the eyes of the peddler, and nodding knowingly, and then stuff them back into the pouch, and after that put that money back into the pouch, and hang the bag once again on the nail near the window. Now let us see what happened after that. The next day both men got up in good season. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. So after that means crofter showed a good hospitality towards him. He welcomed him. He provided him not only shelter, rather food. He played cards with him, and he also showed him that money, 30 kroners, and after that both of them slept. But the next day when they got up in good season. They got up feeling refreshed. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, because the crofter, who was the host, he had to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. And then other man means the rat trap seller, the peddler, thought that since the owner of the house had already got up, he should not stay in the bed. So he had also gotten up, and they left the cottage at the same time, and both of them left the cottage at the same time. And the crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. And the crofter was the owner of the cottage, that he locked the door and kept the key in his pocket. And the man with the rat trap means the peddler said goodbye and thank you. And the peddler said him goodbye and also thanked him for his good hospitality, and thereupon each went his way. And after that, both of them went to their own ways. But half an hour later, the rat trap peddler stood again before the door. Now, see, student, this is important. After half an hour, once again, peddler came back and stood in front of the door of the cottage, crafter's house. So he did not try to get in, and when this time he came, he did not try to enter into the house, and he only went up to the window, smashed a pane stuck in his hand, and got hold of the pouch with the 30 kroner. And remember, student, that he was a greedy fellow. Somewhere he was also a thief. He was doing petty thievery already, and somewhere that he was attracted by that 30 kroner which was within his reach, which was put near the window on the nail near the window, and that's why he was attracted towards the money, and that's why half an hour after he came back, and he only went up to the window, and he just went near the window and smashed a pane, and he broke one of the glasses of the window, and stuck in his hand and got hold of the pouch, and then just put his hand inside and put the and kept the pouch, the bag with the 30 kroner, where 30 kroner banknotes were kept, and he took the money and thrust it into his own pocket, and after that he just took out the money and kept it into his pocket, means he had stolen the money, and then he hung the leather pouch very carefully back in its place and went away. And after stealing those 30 kroner, he put the bag once again at the same place very carefully and went away from there. Now remember, students, here, since peddler himself was thinking philosophically that this whole world was a big rat trap, and the human being is just like a rat, and he compared the bet with the money, with the food, clothing, shelter, all the luxurious things which are present here in the world. But this time he was thinking about all these things for other people, that who are circling around it, and then when they are going to touch it, they are trapped. Now this was the time his own philosophical thought had been implemented on himself, because that the 30 kroner, he was attracted by those 30 kroner which was put near the window, and he came back and he was attracted towards it, and then he committed a crime, means he had stolen the money. And now let us see whether his trouble started from there or not. So as he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. And first of all, after stealing the money, that he thought that he was very smart, and he was quite happy with his smartness, that he was able to deceive the crafter and he had stolen the money. And he realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, and that's why that he realized, when after stealing the money, when he started going away from there, that he did not think it's a fair idea to go through the public highway, through the main road. and but must turn off the road into the woods. So he decided not to go through the public highway, rather he had decided to go through the woods, through the forest, so that he could not be caught. And why it happened? It all happened. He had to leave the public highway because he was a guilty mind. He had stolen the money. Otherwise, he did not need to go through the forest and hide himself. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. And in the initial hours, during the first few hours, he did not face any difficulty, did not face any problem. But later in the day, it became worse. Because it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. But later on, that his problem started, because that it was the forest in which that he was going through. It was a big, very big, dense and confusing forest, and which he had gotten into, and through which he was going. And he tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. And since it was a big and confusing forest, he tried to be sure that he was going in a different direction, in a right direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. But there are so many, the paths inside the forest was so much twisted that he was quite confused. He became confused. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and he kept on walking through the forest, but he was not able to come out of it. And finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. And finally he realized that he was walking around the same part of the forest. Means he tried a lot but did not get the way to come out from the forest. All at once he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Means when he was trapped, he himself was trapped there in the forest, he remembered his own philosophical thought that whole this world is like a rat trap. Whole this world is rat trap. And now his own turn had come. Now this was his own time. He was thinking bad about the people, but now it was his own turn to be trapped, and he was trapped into the forest. And he had let himself be fooled by a bet. What was the bet? That money, 30 kroner, was kept there. It was set like a bet, and he befooled himself, and he had stolen that money. And because of that, just like the trap, just like the rat, when he went to have the bet, means to get the money, he stolen the money, he was trapped. The whole forest with its trunks and branches, since the whole forest was very big and confusing, very dense forest, so that's why he thought that the whole forest with its trunks and branches, its thickest and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison. See, students, impenetrable prison means there is a prison which cannot be crossed. Impenetrable prison. So because he was trapped inside the forest, and he tried a lot to come out from it, but he was unable to come out of the forest. So that's why he compared the forest with impenetrable prison, means from where it was just that the whole forest was just like the prison, from where he was unable to come out, and which he could never escape, means he found himself uh, unable to escape from the prison, means from the that forest. And all this happened because of his stealing that 30 kroner, stealing that money. Now let us see that what happened next. And it was late in December. What happened after that means that his problem increased. How? Because it was late in December, it was month of December, late December it was, and darkness was already descending over the forest, and it had already become dark in the forest, and this increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. And this increased the danger. How? Because it was a big and that very dense, very confusing forest, and there might be the danger of the wild animals. He was alone in the forest, he was trapped into it, and increased also his gloom and despair, and that's why he became very sad and disappointed. And all this happened, remember students, why? Because he had made a crime, he had committed a mistake by stealing the money, and that's why that he had to leave the main highway. He decided to go through the forest, and then he was trapped. If he would not have stolen that money, he did not need to go through the forest, and he would not have been trapped. Finally, he saw no way out. Finally, he did not get any way to come out of the forest, and he sank down on the ground. And then that finally he fell down on the ground, tired to death. He was so much tired that means he thought that his last moment has come. So out of tiredness he fell down on the ground, thinking that his last moment had come. Now he will be died. But just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound, a hard, regular thumping sound. But when he fell down on the ground, then what happened? That just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound. Then he heard a regular thumping sound was coming from a definite direction. There was no doubt as to what that was. Now see, students, here that he was not only, he was poor, he was homeless, he was lonely, but apart from this, that he was philosophical, and here we can see the example that he was intelligent as well. That when, if you will have to write the character sketch of a peddler, which is the most important character, then you will have to mention all these merits and demerits. And a hard, regular and thumping sound, there was no doubt as to what that was. And then immediately he understood that what kind of sound is coming. So he raised himself, and those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill. And then he got up, and he understood that those regular thumping sound was the sound of the hammer strokes, which was coming from some of the iron mill. And he thought there must be some iron mill and factory nearby the forest, and there must be people nearby, and he thought that there must be people because that work was going on, and that's why he thought that there must be some people there. And he summoned all his strength, though he was tired, But he gathered all his strength and got up and staggered in the direction of the sound. Staggered means he could not walk because he was tired. So tiredly he started walking towards the direction of the sound of the hammer. So it was his intelligence, remember students, that he got the way to come out from the forest. Now the Ramsjo Iron Works and Mill, it was Ramsjo Iron Works, and which are now closed down. That iron works means iron mill and factory. It was a Ramsjo and mill which was closed down now, and which were not so long ago, that uh, a few years back it was a large plant. That Ramsjo Iron Works was a large plant with smelter, rolling mill and forge. Smelter, rolling mill and forge, furnace, means all those things were the equipments present there for working. And in the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows, boats. In the summertime, large lines of heavily loaded, boats, barges, and scows slide down the canal. There was a canal, and through the canal, that in the big uh, boats, barges, and scows, which led to a large inland lake. And in the winter time, the roads near the mill were black from all the coal dust which sifted down from the big charcoal crates. Through the uh, large canal, in boats, in barges and scows, that coals had been brought there to the iron mill, and which led to the large inland lake. And there was a large lake nearby. So through the lake and through the canal, means that was being brought, uh, charcoals were being brought. And in summertime, and in winter time, the roads near the mill were black from all the coal dust. And in winter time, that whole road has become had become black with the dust of the coal which sifted down from the big charcoal crates which had been brought in the charcoal crates, in the charcoal baskets. And those dust were fallen, and that's why that whole roads had become black. Means all these things had been given, the author has given the background for all this, for the crafter, that when he came from the forest, that since the work was going on in the iron mill. So what was happening? Just the author has described these things in order to give a picture of the working culture of the iron mill. During one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith had his helper sat in the dark forge near the furnace waiting for the big pig iron. Now, the author describes that during one of the dark evenings, and it was just before the Christmas, uh, there was a master smith, and who was working along with his helpers in the forge near the furnace and waiting for the pig iron. And since that work was going on in the evening, means at the night, and which had been put in the fire, and there was some iron which was put into the fire to be ready to put on the anvil, so so that the work can be done on that piece of iron. And every now and then one of them got up to stir, and time to time the someone from the helpers used to go and stir the go and move the glowing mass, glowing piece of iron with the long iron bar, and returning in a few moments dripping with perspiration. And then when he returned, that he was sweating. And though as was the custom, he wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. And since it was the custom that the people that were working there, that the workers had to um, put on only a shirt, a long shirt, and a pair of wooden shoes. But since they were working near the fire, that's why that they were sweating when they came from stirring the iron. All the time there were many sounds to be heard in the forge, and that's why, since the work was going on, so there was a lot of sound being produced, and the big billows groaned, and the burning coal cracked. There was a sound of groaning of the billows, you know that, and the sound of burning coal cracked. You know, when the coal was kept into the furnace, it was also some sound was also being produced from there. The fire boy, there was a fire boy that who shoveled the charcoal, who was, you know, putting the charcoal into the mow, into the furnace. Then also there was a clattering sound. That sound was also coming. Outside road the waterfall, and there was a waterfall outside of the mill, so some sound was also coming from the waterfall. And a sharp north wind wiped the rain against the brick tiled roof. And since it was raining, and the sound when the rain was fallen on the tiled roof, some sound was coming from there also, means there was a lot of sound uh, uh, produced in near into the forge. And here all this reference had been given by the author to making a background for the peddler to enter into the forge without being noticed. Because of this sound, he was not being noticed when he entered into the forge. That's all, students, for today. We are going to stop here, and remaining part of the story we will study in our next class. And for the time being, what you have to do, that all those questions which are related, go through the textual questions. And if you find any of the questions which are related to the today's paragraph, easily you can do, since you have done already those paragraphs. This chapter had already been taught. It is being revised, so it will be easier for you to understand the paragraphs which has been explained today, and it will also be easier for you to understand the answers. Later on we will discuss those questions, but as a homework you can do that. That's all for today. Thank you and have a good day.